May I now introduce Professor Pattnaik, Associate Professor, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Professor Pattnaik, sir, is in this field of academic. We are fortunate enough having you here, sir, among us today. As an academician, sir has 25 years of experience in teaching. His area of specialization is comparative politics, geopolitics, geoeconomics, connectivity, and comparative border studies. Professor Pattnaik is a recipient of Outstanding Teacher Award by the government of Arunachal Pradesh in 2018. He is associate at the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla, in 2011. He was also a visiting scholar at the Gulf Studies program. Professor Pattnaik has got quite a large numbers of best peer-reviewed journals. Well, sir, you are most welcome to our platform. I, on behalf of Center for Ethnic Studies and Research, request you to kindly deliver your speech. And Professor Pattnaik, sir, will be delivering his lecture in this week-long workshop on global government. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Jasna ma'am, for your kind introduction, and I'm also thankful to Dr. Dipan Das on behalf of the Center for Ethnic Studies, Jajati, for giving me invitation and giving the opportunity to deliver a lecture on this important topic, global governance issues and challenges. So I think PowerPoint presentation would be a nice idea because there are a lot of issues which are very intricate in character. So let me.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is disabled, host disabled participant.
Yeah, I request our coordinator, Dr. Jugesh Das, to help our research person sir to share a screen.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It's visible. It is visible, sir.
It is visible, no?
Yes, sir. It's visible. You can proceed.
Okay, okay. It's fine. So let me first with an introduction on global governance. So there is before introducing the term global governance, I would like to explain. Mera bhi laga dijiye photo. So before introducing the term global governance, I would like to introduce like this. The term governance is basically derived from the Greek word kubernein, means to steer. Basically, governance is understood as managing the affairs at any level, maybe at the local level, at the regional level, national level, or the global level. So it's a broader term, basically how a society or an institution, maybe the political institution, how do they manage the economic resources of the country for the development of a country. It also indicates rational utilization of resources, decision-making system, and also proper implementation. And why I have chosen this topic, global governance, because the reason is that in the post-Second World War period, particularly when the modern international institutions, you can say, came into existence through the United Nations, during that period, many international organizations like IMF, World Bank, they actually came into existence to manage the global economic affairs. In this context, you know that how in the contemporary period, the neoliberal paradigm is very significant in the context of this global governance. As we know that this neoliberal paradigm is the product of LPG's thesis that is liberalization, privatization, and globalization in the post-1990 scenario after the disintegration of the Soviet Union as a global power. In the aftermath of the 1991 period, many theses, many propositions were mooted or enunciated by great scholars like Francis Fukuyama. The end of history, that the history came to one end, and there is one ideology, that is liberal capitalistic ideology, will continue to determine the fate of the global mankind. So within this structure of neoliberal paradigm, we found several neoliberal political institutions, as Joseph Nye and Robert Cohen has called it as complex interdependence, that how the present world order is interdependent and how this is complex in character. Many such propositions and ideas cropped up in the global politics, like multiplex world order, which was, the term was coined by Professor Amitabh Acharya. And he particularly interpreted this global world, that there is a diverse political and economic cultural milieu, but how this world is economically and functionally interconnected. Similarly, we have a perspective on great convergence, which was, of course, studied and popularized by eminent economist Richard Baldwin. He believed that there is no such kind of constraint in between the developed and the developing world. Now everything is going to be converged between the labor force, technology, and the materials. It is no longer confined to United America, the West, but it can be produced at any part of the world because it's interdependent in character. We have different theories, but on the same panel, you can find that we discussed many things like trade, technology, and capital. Everybody talks of free movement of trade, technology, knowledge, and everything. Then the concept of regional organizations came up, like ASEAN, EU, Shanghai Cooperation Organizations, Gulf Cooperation Council. Then you have Organization of African Union. Then you have NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. So many such political and economic institutions emerged actually to manage the affairs of the people at the different regional level. And we have the challenges of intellectual property rights. There is brain drain, and there is rise of digital economy, e-commerce. So many such things, new things cropped up, particularly in the 21st century. And there are new challenges for this governance. The question arises, will these regional global organizations be able to meet the enormous challenges coming from this neoliberal capitalistic hegemonic order? So that is how we find the trends in the present day global order tending towards global governance. On the other side, we have other stories like if you look at the present day world order, we have you can find realism vis-a-vis structural realism. You know that in the Second World War period, the nation states particularly were governed by the principle of national interest, leading to wars, First World War and Second World War. So the point is that in the 21st century, do we think that similar situation is going to arise in the wake of presently Russia-Ukraine war and conflict between Russia and United America or NATO or China and USA? Now we basically find two types of traps in the present day. One is Thucydides trap, and second is Kindleberger trap. Thucydides trap actually traces to great, you can say, the Greek city was like Athens and Sparta. And you know that how this led to a great war, because The Sparta was an established power and Athens was posing challenge to it. Similarly, today we find United America is an established power, but its hegemony, its dominance is being challenged by the rise of China. So we are confronted with the challenges of Thucydides' trap. On the other side of the globe, we find there is Kindleberger trap. Kindleberger trap occurs when the global hegemon or the global power abdicates its responsibility from different aspects like health, education, infrastructure, and peace and tranquility. It is witnessed that United America is withdrawing its responsibilities in different spheres, withdrawal of troops, particularly from United America in the Gulf region, and also American aid has been slashed in WHO, World Health Organizations. So there is a question mark. What is the future of public goods, supply of public goods, peace and amity? Because in the absence of international structure, there is no global structure at the present moment. So in the absence of a global structure, the hegemonic powers, dominant powers actually maintain that order. And this order being challenged by, at the present moment, by China. So can today we call it a Sinocentric world? And there is some noise from side. People can mute.
Yeah, Suman Sahu, please. Suman Sahu.
So there is a threat from China today.
Sorry, sir. Suman Sahu, please. Suman Sahu, you are disturbing the session. Please. Okay, sir.
Okay. So the point is that this is the nature of the global world order, and how today China is shaping this global world order. China's message is that under Tianjia, China is trying to maintain global peace, inclusive development and welfare of the people. But is it a right proposition, or it is a right, you can say, hypothesis or right idea is to be accepted by the global community? Under the rubric of, you must be knowing about the Belt and Road Initiative that is called BRI. We have different corridors, like it has its own road and sea corridors. And under the rubric of road initiatives, we have China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, we have China-Myanmar Economic Corridor, we have China-Central Asian Economic Corridor, we have China-West Asian Economic Corridor. Similarly, we have China Maritime Silk Road Corridor, which connects the Chinese ports like Guangzhou, Beijing with Singapore, and ports like Dubai, and also ports like Israel and up to Europe. So the point is that the point here arises that is this China-centric or the Sino-centric world order would lead to equitable, just, and democratized global governance? That is the most important question, because China does say. So what we find today, so far as some of the field studies I did in my research work, particularly in India's northeastern parts, in the context of restoring a resilient global supply chain, is the most important and crucial issue so far as this global governance is concerned. Most of the global supply chains are concentrated in China. So there is asymmetric supply chain dependency. The supply chain is not symmetrical in character. It is not really interdependent. It is hegemonic, it's dominant, and it is asymmetrical, unequal in character. I'm giving examples like today you find, suppose the petroleum. Petroleum is called the black gold. Now there is a paradigm shift towards the manufacturing industry in the age of internet, ICT industry, information and telecommunication technology. So there's shifting from black gold to white gold. And white gold is basically lithium, and which is mostly used in the production of this ICT battery and how it sustains this ICT economy. And world's major global supplies of lithium is found in ABC countries, Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile. But you see, so where the finishing products are concerned, they're produced mostly in China, concentrated in China. So if you look at the rare earth materials, the materials which are required for this computer industry, television industry, or in that sense, electronic industry, these industries are mostly concentrated in China and Hong Kong, all those areas, mostly in China. But these raw metals are concentrated mostly in Africa. That is how Africa is one of the most important new areas which is being explored by China. So in this context, how to bring structurally democratized global governance model, how to resolve this asymmetry, and what is the role of India and the rest of the powers? That is the most important issues. And on the one hand, we find those challenges at the structural level between the different powers and how there is a conflict between United States of America and China so far as the hegemony is concerned. And nobody is filling up this gap of Kindleberger trap. That is the reason the world witnessed havoc, particularly in case of Russia-Ukraine war in COVID-19 issue. These are basically the global issues confronting the mankind, particularly to trade, technology, transfer of knowledge and everything. But besides this, there are other serious and vexed problems, major issues concerning the global governance, which we'll discuss one by one and what should be the solution for all of us. Is there any global governance for terrorism to for counter-terrorism? Probably we have not been successful. There is radicalism. Radicalism, the radical is a term, you know that radix, derived from the word radix, means very much rooted. But in this form of radicalism, we find there is also an element of terrorism, and we mostly witness in case of the West Asian region. The non-state actors, particularly like Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, and many of other organizations emanating from the borders like Jaish Muhammad and Lashkar-e-Toiba, they pose challenge to global peace and security. So we have UN Counter-Terrorism Center, and we have seen the worst of the crisis, particularly 9/11 incident, attacks on the Indian Parliament, and the series of violence that have been happening in case of the West Asian nations. So there is an urgent need on the part of the international actors, particularly there is a need for a consensus among the members of the United Nations for resolute action against this international terrorism. We know that, I do not want to dwell upon the details. We can have the detailed discussion in the question and answer session. But so far as my opinion is concerned, we have not been very much successful, particularly in countering this radicalism or terrorism emanating from these particular regions. It's a grave challenge to all of us. In the name of jihad, how the struggle continues, the element of jihadi terrorism is witnessed in different parts of this world. And you know that how it has affected. We'll have discussion in the next round, particularly in the question and answer session. Then coming to the other issue, that is cyber terrorism. This is the second, or can say another important issue concerning the humankind. So we need to have some international rules and regulation and global governance, particularly models, to counter this threat of cyber terrorism. The cyberspace is basically used for violence and terrorism purpose. There is a phishing software and malware which can intrude into your computer and can hijack your all secret economic aspect, and also they can also pose challenge to the national security aspect in terms of hijacking some important materials through this phishing software and malware system. And also there is a demand today that there is need for cyber sovereignty, because this cyber sovereignty doesn't have any space or border. It is global in character. It is global commons in the sense it goes beyond the territory. It traverses the entire universe. So here the point is that in the name of cyber security, and also you know that in this field there's a new phenomenon which is arising, is very important, the disinformation campaign. It's the latest technique. The disinformation campaign is being launched by various countries to malign other countries through social media websites. In the Arab Spring in the Middle East, the disinformation campaign was launched, and how sometimes, even if there is a genuine aspect, we know that most of the West Asian countries are authoritarian in character, but the truth is not revealed. The disinformation campaign sometimes is a great challenge. We know that China, United America, most of the nation states are indulged in this disinformation campaign, which tramples up democracy, the freedom of speech expression, and liberty. So but I feel there is need for a transnational governance. The regional organizations like European Union or SAARC or GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, NAFTA, and United Nations. These organizations are there to monitor and control and constrain this malice, this negative activities. But the point is that there is no such international law. There is no unanimity on the part of the global powers to bring some kind of transnational rules, orders, particularly in this domain. And that is how you know that how, in spite of the fact that we have Interpol, International Police Organization, in Europol, there are different organizations to control these threats. Apart from this economic threats, we have also, you know, that particularly in the flesh trade and nudity, they're all actually the challenges for this, all of us. But we have not yet reached any conclusion, because the nation states, they're ultimately sovereign. So mostly they differ. So it is very difficult to control the area which is moving around the world. It doesn't have any border. It doesn't have any particularistic identity that you can say it will be confined to only Jajati or that's it, the Nepal border or the western frontiers of India. So it is universal. Space is transnational. So this is very significant and important challenges for all of us. Then another problem is we know that northeastern states are confronted with the challenges of migration and refugee crisis. But we know that migration and refugee crisis is they're very alarming today. Of course, there are push and pull factors. You know that how migration takes place, partly because of push and pull factors, and also due to natural calamities or human-made calamities or religious persecution or the racial persecution like that. Today, we have a lot of refugees in the global world, like Rohingya refugees, particularly Syrian refugees, Afghan refugees at the global level. And it is very difficult because they are creating problems in the domestic setup because the resources are very limited. Resources are very limited. It's confined to that particular region, to a particular national identity or ethno-regional identity. But when some other nationals are intruding into their social economic space, ultimately they also into the political space in future. So that becomes a problem. Today we have a lot of international refugees, and they have also a lot of pathetic stories. Example of Syrian refugees, how they were crushed by the authoritarian rulers of Syria, particularly by Assad regime, and how they have been taking refugees. And in this context, role of UNHCR, United Nations, particularly Human Rights Commission on Refugees, is there. They're controlling and they're coordinating, but yet we have not yet resolved this crisis. And India's Northeast is the best example of that, how the states are facing the brunt of refugee crisis, particularly the cross-border migration from the borders. We know that Rohingya refugees and refugees from Bangladesh as well. And because of push and pull factors, the entire northeastern states, because I've traveled all the northeastern states, including the borders, intensively have traveled all the districts of Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Meghalaya, everything I've visited. And so I found actually refugee crisis is very sensitive. And you know that how sensitive is it, because in the recent context, the scheduled tribe status, which is supposed to be given to the Meiteis, it created a mayhem and violence, particularly from the other tribal people. So it's a very sensitive issue, resource, society, political representation, they are very sensitive. And since the resources are limited and you have facing the burden of the refugees, it creates a crisis. But unfortunately, states are sovereign. India has not yet signed UNHCR. So how to deal with those challenges? This is very important. So how to bring governance is affected. Particularly in the context of regional, national, and local sense, it is a global governance, issue of global governance. But if you link it, the local people at the local, regional, at the state and national level, they're affected. That's the most important aspect. Then you have another aspect is, I think, health. Health is an important issue, and there is need for global governance in this context. World Health Organization was constituted as a global body to control, coordinate, and manage the global health hazards, particularly communicable diseases and the diseases which have been a threat to the existence of humankind. But recently, in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, you have seen that how this disaster has taken millions of lives. And WHO could not do much because WHO not only includes the international actors, it also includes several civil society and international organizations. But during the COVID-19 pandemic, the role of WHO is criticized in the sense, of course, there was no proper coordination between WHO and the nation states, sovereign nation states, because sovereign nation states, they have their own norms and regulations. In that sense, the COVID-19 pandemic was a disaster. And the concept of vaccine diplomacy, you know that, of course, India did a lot, particularly vaccine Maitri and supplying vaccine to the different parts of the world and saving the mankind. But the point is that this WHO is to be strengthened as a global body for the global health governance. But the conflict between China and USA, why I say so, US has slashed, it has decreased the fund, particularly to the WHO, because of the conflicting opinion and also particularly China's dubious role on the Wuhan virus crisis. Although US, China, Britain, and most of the European countries, they remain the primary, you can say, the basic contributors to the WHO funds, but there is need for a tremendous effort on the part of, not only on the part of the global organizations, but there is need on the part of the community organizations at the local level, how to strengthen this governance, and ultimately it would help in strengthening the global governance. We have certain features, some challenges, as we have completely witnessed, and today also we feel how the particularly global health agents like Max and other international brands, they have particularly exploiting the people at the middle class and the poor level because of the huge medical bills and the so-called sophisticated techno-mediated health system. The technology is fine, but it is exorbitant prices that have taken a heavy toll on the economic aspect of the middle class and the lower middle class and the poor people. So the medical industry, particularly the global health industry, is to be revisited. The challenges of how can the common man afford the technology mediated global health system, which is very costly and cumbersome affair. Common man cannot afford it. So what is the role of WHO, particularly the public sector health organizations? Health education, they're very important because health and education, they are key to human development. That can lead to a proper, structured, democratized, egalitarian, and you can say people-centric global governance. Well, the health system is really very pathetic in the sense it's creating a system wherein a capitalistic, hegemonic, you can say entrepreneurial class, they're exploiting the people at the poor level. And we have nothing to, in the sense, we have no chance but to succumb to the pressure of this neoliberal capitalistic global health agents. This is really prevalent. Similarly, it happens in case of education as well. Is there in a global governance structure can really look into this crisis of education? Because education is also spared one. We have different campuses like Oxford, Harvard, they're coming up and the privatized education. The common man cannot afford the high prices, the elitist-oriented educational system, which doesn't actually meet to the real needs of the people. These are all the different challenges. So how to bring an egalitarian order, particularly in the context of global governance, health, education, they're also significant. They're also important to understand the dynamics. Then we have another aspect is global climate change. It's very significant. It's an important contour of global governance. We know that the climate change is happening. It's very much prevalent. CFC, particularly chlorofluorocarbon and greenhouse gases, they have contributed greatly to the global warming. Since the UN resolutions and particularly Kyoto proposal and protocol and also the Paris protocol, the latest protocol, we have to contain this global temperature up to 1.5 level. 1.5 1.5. It should not go beyond 1.5 level. But the point is that the devastating nature of industrialization, particularly devastating nature of the way we actually were industrializing, the way we are actually bringing a paradigm shift, a kaleidoscopic transformation, the manufacturing sector, agricultural sector, real estate. The most important challenge is real estate. Everywhere you find the flats and the buildings, mushrooming flats and buildings at the cost of forest and vegetation. There are serious challenges along with your vehicular pollution. To me, what I've seen in the most of the cities in the global world, vehicular pollution mostly increases CFC along with your manufacturing sectors, and also the loss of vegetation, loss of forest because of massive growth of this real estate sectors, booming real estate sector in every parts of this world. You find while visiting or going to the Guwahati airport, both sides, how many, there is mushrooming of this flats and real estate sectors. So this is a real challenge. And besides this, there is a challenge of the fossil fuels, particularly fossil fuels, petrol and diesel. They also contribute greatly to the global warming. So what is the alternative model for a global green governance? Can we have a global green governance? But it's possible. Recently in G20 also India is taking the leadership, mantle of leadership in this direction. This is called One World, One Sun, One Grid. We have started this project from Gujarat, and since this region, particularly if you look at the geographical location of Middle Eastern countries, Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, countries like Africa, Egypt, Libya, in Kenya, and Australia, these regions, Malaysia, Indonesia, they're all situated in this tropical belt. So we have huge or opulent sun rays, particularly the energy we can derive from the sun, and you can restore it through solar plates. And through international solar grid, we can transport it to the different parts of the world. Particularly, we can transport it to the European countries. They are fully energy dependent because of the low temperature. You know that because of this Ukraine crisis, today, most of the European countries like Germany, France, they're very much dependent upon energy, particularly gas and oil. They are low temperature ridden countries. So that is how the countries like us, we can take a leading role and to how to create one world, one sun and one grid, that is transcontinental grid, which is very much possible. We have South Asian grids, and that can be well connected because we have already achieved, and so far as the global infrastructure governance is concerned, ASN Highway 1 and 2, they're very well connected. Only problem is that Pakistan is a stumbling block. Otherwise, if you find, you can start your journey from More, Tamu, then you can through the particularly Guwahati, and then Dauki, you can reach up to Europe. This road is very much there, is up to Singapore. So, so far as the ASN Highway 1, 2, and the African ASN Highway is concerned, global transport infrastructure is mostly done. It is only the border areas is to be connected. So the political bottlenecks are to be resolved or are to be removed. So in this context, we can have the transnational grids through continental ways and through sea ways also. So let us see how we can bring green global governance. And in this context, particularly the various green movements and international organizations, civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, and they have a major role to play to bring a global governance, because under the United Nations, we have been discussing these issues under different protocols and programs. The latest was the Paris conference, how it gave us this 1.5 mark as the limit for the CFC reduction. Then another point is about this. Depend how many minutes I have? Hello, Dipan, are you there?
Yes, sir.
How
No,
much,
you can carry on. No problem, sir. You can carry on, sir.
how much time I have actually?
No, actually, the class is for 1.5 hours.
Okay, okay.
Yes, okay.
So we'll continue up to 1:30, I think, no?
Yeah. You can take 15 minutes for interaction.
15 minutes. I think interaction, it would have been better, some higher amount in the sense 30 minutes. Or okay, I'll complete it.
Okay, sir.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Okay. So last one is very important in the sense, let us discuss and take a stand how to correct this global order and global governance, which are very much inextricably interwoven, the two sides of the same coin. They have symbiotic relationship. Today, actually, there is an urgent need for South-South cooperation. Why I call it South-South cooperation? Because you see the Europe and Anglo-American or American Western world, they are very rich. Everything is with them. But unfortunately, they have disproportionately contributed to the rise of global warming. They are not ready to compromise their living standards. And their population is very low. If you find any European countries, 5 to 6 crores. So India is more than 140 crore. It's equivalent to how much? It is around, I think, 35 countries. So European Union is only 28. So the problem is that these countries are decaying in terms of population and everything. But the point is that they're not ready to compromise. They're not ready to transport the technology. They're not ready to compromise their living standards. So they have been responsible for quite a long time. But now it is our time to wake up and take a stand, because we are contributing greatly to the global population. We are also going through a period where there is faster industrialization in the manufacturing, computer, and everything. We can surpass the West, in particular United America, very soon. So today, these are all challenges for the global humankind. So the question arises: who is going to actually resolve this crisis? Does India have the capability or the choice to deal with this? So let me discuss India's stand, particularly in the context of global governance. Then also Northeast is very significant. I'll tell you why India is significant. The first reason is that India is having today the highest global population in the world, just surpassed China just recently. But this is a demographic dividend for us, because today you find in most of the nation states, Indians, they're prepared. Indians are one of the most important diasporic community in the global world today. If you go to Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, Ras Al Khaimah in UAE, or Qatar, Kuwait, or Egypt, every part of this West Asia, you find 20. In Dubai, most of them are Indians, 42% are Indians. Similarly, if you go new areas like in Australia and New Zealand, they are the new choices. And Indian diasporic strength is increasing in Australia and New Zealand as well. Similarly, in case of United America, similarly also in case of European Union. The best example, it is evident in case of Rishi Sunak as the Prime Minister of Great Britain, and Kamala Harris as the Vice President of United America. And also you find many of Indian origin people like Mauritius, Fiji, and West Indian Islands like Antigua, Barbados. Most of them belong to the Indian stock. And not only in the political domain, but also in the entrepreneurial domain, particularly in health, education. We have Indians also, they have a global educational linkages. Now Amity, Global Jindal University, even Savitribai Pune University, they have campuses in the Middle Eastern countries as well. They're expanding in the Southeast Asia as well. So now we're trying our best in that way. So in terms of diasporic community, we have huge success compared to any other global diaspora, be it Filipino, be it Malaysia, be it Pakistan, be it China. Because the reason is that our people are very punctual, dedicated, skill-oriented, sober, and workaholic. And that is how the diasporic community has been a great factor in influencing India's role in the global level, at the global level, in different spheres. The celebration of International Yoga Day is one of the best examples to illustrate how yoga is being celebrated in the different parts of the world. So second important factor of India being in the leading force in this global governance model is its geostrategic location. India is geostrategically located in the sense it is the link between the West Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, Indo-Pacific, and Europe. If you look at the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal, India has more than 7,500 kilometers of coastlines. It has a vast coastline. So geostrategically, India is in a superior position even to China to play a greater role in this global governance, particularly in cyber technology, in health, education, and in supplementing or sharing its expertise in the different parts of the world. And the third one is our democratic system. Indian democratic system is very much ingrained in the Indian cultural milieu. If you look at the Magadh Janpath system, which was very much prevalent, like Kalinga, Kosal, Ang, but traditionally we have inherited this democratic cultural milieu. You find in northeastern states as well, you find the different tribal communities, the tribal village councils like Yabang among Adis and Buliang among Apatanis and Mokchup and Chukai Kham, and also Malay and other systems we have seen in the system among Khasis, Garos, Jaintias, and in Karbi Anglong we also find. So this democratic cultural milieu is very much ingrained in our culture in the sense of system. So it's systemic in character. So in this context, so I think in this we have
Participant, please mute your mic. It is disturbing you.
So
Disturbing us, please mute. Please. Some of the participants, some of you, one is just mute off your phone, please.
So point is that this is an added advantage to India compared to its counterparts like China and others. The reason is that they have an authoritarian. So recently I participated, I think I chaired a meeting between India and Sudan in Delhi just 2 months back. The Sudanese delegate categorically stated that although we are inviting China, but we prefer India. So I inquired the reason behind it. The Sudanese delegate mentioned that the Chinese economic arrangement with Sudan
One of
কি
the
ইমান
participants,
সহজে
please
পাবা বুলি হৈছে নেকি কথা?
listen and
এই
mute off your phone.
আমেৰিকা
It is
আৱিষ্কাৰ
simply
কৰিবলৈ
disturbing
কলম্বাছে
us.
কিমান মহাসাগৰ পাৰ হৈছে।
I don't know
এটা
why the
নিশাও পাৰ
participants
পাব
are not
নোৱাৰে নে
taking
নাই?
a lot of it. I request the participant to mute off the phone, please. It is disturbing us. Please be allowed on it.
বাৰ্থডে এইবিলাক।
It is our request.
অ অ 4 বজাত।
Deepa Barua, Mr. Pompeo,
4 বজাত কম্পিউটাৰ ক্লাছ কেতিয়ালৈকে থাকে?
I'm saying thank you. Deepa Barua, please mute off your phone.
তুমি অকমান সোনকালে ওলাই আহিবা, মোৰ লগতে গুচি যাবা।
I'm saying thank
কোন
you.
কি কৰে? জয়বাৰী।
So
আহিব পাৰিবা আজি। 10 মিনিট মান আগতে ওলাই যাবা।
I'm saying thank you. May I request you to mute off your phone? Your phone is disturbing us as the resource person is online and he is giving his concluding speech. May I request you? Participants, please mute off your phone. Horen Bora. All the participants are not responding to it. Horen Bora, your phone. Thank you.
So let me conclude because I think everybody is angry now. So the point is that India has added advantage over China and others so far that this democratic structure is concerned. Lastly, I would like to mention that
কম্পিউটাৰ ক্লাছৰ কিবা এটা কাৰণত আহিছে নেকি?
take this lead in global governance. We know that de-dollarization
কৈছিলো যেনিবা কি যদি
in the very recent past.
হ'ব পাৰে তেতিয়া এটাই কৰিব ভাবে।
International institutions like IMF,
মূৰৰ মিপা
World Bank, UN Security Council, to me, it must be democratized with the representation from the different continents. And the point here is that recently, rupee has become an international phenomena because now we are directly trading with Russia and other countries in rupee. And also in Singapore and other areas, how rupee is being accepted as an international gateway. This is a great success. Similarly, the other countries like China is also entering this international domain, and there is de-dollarization. Dollar is retreating from the economic scenario. So in this context, I think the traditional international economic institutions like IMF, World Bank, and WTO, they must be democratized, and every country must have the right to share its views in an egalitarian and democratic manner. Ultimately, when you say that there is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one world and one family, it is possible only if we, all the nation states, actually try to remove our differences and try to have a consensus on certain global issues like climate change, health, cyber terrorism, religious radicalism, technology of transfer, and migration issues, and also challenges to human rights. So the point here is that let us have the consensus, being the citizens of India, that we must have a consensus on these basic issues in order to ensure sustainable development and global governance, which should be or would be democratic and egalitarian in nature in the days ahead. So thank you. So I will take questions and we'll have question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
আপুনি কৈ আছে নেকি?
Thank you very much, Jajati Pattnaik, sir, for giving your valuable presentation to our. I request my esteemed participants, please, if you have got any queries or any observation related to the speech delivered by Pattnaik, you can give your observation and your queries to him in the chat box. May I request the participant to give certain observations and queries to respected sir? as he is here for a while to discuss with you all about his presentation. He has given a very brilliant presentation on entire global governance. He has just simply touched each and every process, cones and nooks and corners of his topic. May I? Well, sir has delivered on restoring a resilient global supply chain. And he even asked like this, that is there any global governance for terrorism or to global peace? He talked on counterterrorism, global peace, about UN counterterrorism. Even he delivered and he expressed very brilliantly about there is no such international law for global power and its domain and all. Even he talked about the health, education, global climate actions, and what is the role of UNO, role of WHO, global climate actions, and so on and so far. Dear participants, if you don't have any sort of observation and queries till now, may I request our organizing committee, Dr. Jugesh Das, to give his agenda for the further technical sessions.
It will be available in WhatsApp group.
Okay, thank you so much. It will be available in the WhatsApp group now. Being the anchor or the moderator of the first technical inaugural session, and being an active member of Center for Ethnic Studies, Jyotsna Hajar